Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for July 3rd through July 9th of 2023. My name is Cam White. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure you like this video, comment, let me know what you're excited for about this week or what you're not so excited for. I think this is a week to be excited about because there's not a lot going on, which that comes with a caveat. Next week, we have two major things, but then the week after that, so 2 weeks from now, everything gets crazy. Like I already have the horoscope written for 2 weeks from now and shit hits the fan. This week is relatively chill. So I would just, something to be excited for about this week is just that it's calm and it's going to be a good week to get kind of your emotional state together. So let's just go ahead and get started with it. And of course, we're starting Monday off with the full moon in Capricorn. I would have ended last week talking about this because technically the full moon happens really early on Monday, but the moon would have been in Capricorn on, Sunday night. So I talked a little bit about it. But here's the deal. This is a two-way street. On one end, there's this kind of realization of, again, maybe where you've been emotionally closed off, maybe where emotions have been, not felt all of the way. This can be looking at where you might need to open up a little bit more. But the other thing that I want to talk about with this full moon in Capricorn is what emotional state do you need to be in to get shit done? With the full moon in Capricorn, like the sun's in Cancer, right? We're focused on necessity. We're focused on caring. We're focused on feelings, right? The Cancer season, it's summer. Everyone's feeling good. Typically, this is like when people travel and they see family. And as the sun's in Cancer and we're focused on, again, emotional needs, you could say security, but what I mean by security is much more of like an emotional state. This full moon is sometimes you have to be a lot more serious, and sometimes you have to kind of disconnect your emotions in order to get those emotional needs fulfilled. Not everything in life is easy, guys. You guys should know that by now. But with this full moon, this really is about starting the week off with maybe having a healthy level of disconnect from our emotions, thinking more logically and thinking more seriously in order to meet those emotional needs. When you have emotional needs and you're constantly being controlled by your emotions, you're going to go left, you're going to go right, you're going to be all over the place. This is kind of the time to realize where you need to kind of, suck it up a little bit, where you kind of need to be a little bit of a man, even though I know a lot of you are women, but sometimes it's healthy to disconnect from things and just take something serious for a moment. The other thing is after the moon will then go opposite Mercury in Cancer, where, again, now that Mercury's in Cancer, communication, logic, information, it's being communicated through, a very empathetic, emotional, kind of more sensitive way. And as the moon goes opposite Mercury, I look at this as the full moon first starts, right? Where it's kind of like, hey, I need to take this seriously and I might need to disconnect to kind of do things in a serious way. But then as the moon goes opposite Mercury, you have to communicate stuff. And this is an opposition. Oppositions aren't easy, right? They're two parties at odds with one another. And the challenge is, how do you communicate with empathy? How do you communicate with trust and with care and with sensitivity without letting your emotions take control over the situation, without being, emotionally, reactive? It's like, when you fire someone, I've luckily never had to fire someone, but if you own a business, that can't be really easy. But, people have like relationships with people. You care about, how your employees are, but if someone's not performing and you have to actually end up firing someone, or, maybe you're not making as much money in your company, you have to fire someone. That's not an easy conversation. And you can have that conversation with a lot of empathy, with a lot of emotional connection, without their story, without their situation affecting you so much to where you change your decision and you change your mind and you just say, you know what, we're going to figure out a way. And I'm using that as an analogy. I say that because this isn't like you need to like fire someone or something like that. But it's just a good analogy or a good example of where a healthy level of emotional disconnect can be good. But the challenge again is, how do we communicate that trust and that care and that, like sympathy without it controlling you? So then the other thing that we have on Monday is the moon, after it leaves that opposition with Mercury, it's going to be making a trine to Uranus. So I've been saying this for a while. I'm a little over talking about like trines and sextiles to Neptune and Uranus because like it's so subtle sometimes. It's not going to be, the biggest thing in the world. But as the moon makes that trine to Uranus, there is this level of freedom, of liberation, of feeling excited. When you see an opposition to Uranus or a conjunction with Uranus, that's going to bring out, or even a square, that's going to bring out the unstable, the shakeup of Uranus. A trine or a sextile to Uranus is more liberating. It's more freeing. They're working together. And so I look at this like moon leaving that opposition with Mercury trining Uranus is like a sense of freedom, a sense of feeling like, wow, that felt good. I feel more secure. I feel more stable. I feel more grounded. This is all the earth sign stuff, right? So as we move into Tuesday, the moon is then going to make a sextile to Neptune, and then it's going to conjoin Pluto, and then it's going to go into Aquarius. So again, the moon sextile Neptune. And the reason I'm over talking about it is just, I feel as if both astrologers and people who consume astrology content put this huge emphasis on Pluto and Neptune. I would argue Uranus has a little bit more of an influence, and Neptune too, but it's just these outer planets that are kind of telling a much broader story. You're not going to see them as much in your life. Now, a conjunction to one of these planets, for example, the moon on Tuesday will be conjoining Pluto, so there is something to talk about there. But as the moon just sextiles Neptune, hey, this is just kind of like being able to idealize, being able to vision, being able to, romanticize a situation, right? It's kind of like moon, trines Uranus is a little bit of a liberating feeling. There's a little bit of a freedom feeling. Moon sextiles Neptune. It's like, cool, I can be, what's next for me? What else can I envision? What else is going to make me... That's what's fun about Neptune, is it's really good at envisioning things. But then as it conjoins Pluto and then it goes into Aquarius, the big thing with the moon conjoining Pluto is power, control, fear. As the moon conjoins Pluto, there is a level of how much does the system, just in general, without even talking about a zodiac sign, how much does power and fear and control influence your emotions on a day-to-day basis, or just in your life in general? And I think as the moon conjoins Pluto, this is looking at hey, our emotions are connected to a sense of power or a sense of fear. And my question for you is, which one are you going to choose? I talked a little bit about this on my Patreon, on my monthly overview for July. But my question is, why are you living a life in which the negative effects of Pluto are having so much influence over you? Now, if Pluto is hitting your ascendant, like a major angle or a major planet, right on, that's different. But I find so many people saying oh, Pluto is doing all this stuff to their lives, and it's not even doing anything to the charts. But they resonate so much with that archetype of, fear and manipulation and power and control. And it's always the negative sides of that. And my question is, why are you living a life where fear is dictating every motion, every action, every decision that you make? That is not a life worth living. And I think as the moon conjoins Pluto, how can you switch that into power? When you face a fear, if you have a fear, right, and you are afraid to go for it, you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm afraid of that, so I need to play it safe. I need to be in my comfort zone. But life is all about growth. Life is all about, I just heard this the other day. The meaning of life is the fulfillment of potential. That I thought a lot about that, and boy, did that really hit home. How can you fulfill your potential if you're going to live in fear? But when you face those fears, you guys are adults. How many times have you faced a fear and that transmutated into some sort of power, into some sort of feeling of, you can overcome, you can do anything? And so this moon conjoining Pluto, it's just a transit. The moon's going to conjoin Pluto once every 30 days. The moon's going to square Pluto once every 30 days. The moon's going to go opposite Pluto every 30 days. We're constantly coming back to this archetype. But I'm saying this because I want you guys to start looking at this in a different way. But as the moon conjoins Pluto, why are you going to let fear control and dictate your emotions? Why not let that empower you? What is the other side of that? And as the moon sextiles Neptune, the moon will trine Uranus on Monday. There's a sense of freedom, liberation. Moon will sextile Neptune. Cool. We get to be more idealistic and kind of vision more things. But as the moon conjoins Pluto, let that empower you. But then the moon moves into Aquarius on Tuesday. And with the moon in Aquarius, again, our emotions, our body are more connected to society, ideas, networks, people in general, kind of more of a tribe mentality. And that's kind of it on Tuesday. The moon doesn't really make any aspects from there, but we'll keep talking about the moon in Aquarius on Wednesday. So then as we get into Wednesday, the moon will make a square to Jupiter, and then it's going to make a square to Uranus. So the moon in Aquarius making a square to Jupiter and Taurus. Jupiter's in Taurus, right? Slow and steady wins the race. What is, like, I thought when I made my Jupiter and Taurus video, the thing that stuck out to me so much was like the sensuality, like really relishing in what is going to feel good. Taurus is a slow moving sign. And it's like, you know, when you move too fast through life, you kind of miss all the good parts. There's like a Forrest Gump quote about that. And I can't remember what it is. But as the moon squares Jupiter, like Aquarius, and some of you are going to like hound on me for this because I am a little bit more negative on the Aquarius stuff. And I have really good reasons for that. And that's not like, if you're an Aquarius sun or if you have Aquarius planets, that doesn't mean like you're bad or you're evil or anything like that. But currently right now in the 21st century and how the triplicity shift has happened, like a lot of the Aquarius stuff isn't all that great at the moment. It is ruled by the greater malefic, Saturn, and Pluto is going to be going back and forth there for a while. But the reason I even bring this up is Aquarius is like the sign of mental gymnastics to me, like especially like Mercury in Aquarius. And with the moon being in Aquarius, like we're much more sensitive to like what other people's ideas are, what other people are saying, you know, what are your friends and family going to think? What is your, you know, network? What is your tribe going to think of all of these things? And as the moon squares Jupiter, you can't let the people that you're around ruin a good time for yourself. Like you might be excited about an idea, or you might be passionate about something that you're starting, or even a relationship. And if you're so connected to everyone else's thoughts and opinions, it's really going to ruin your party. And I think on Wednesday, there's this kind of like, maybe not even like, you're not directly going to people like, what do you think? What do you think? But then people might share their opinions, or maybe you read something online about it and it might burst your bubble a little bit. And so I think there's something to say about how much do you let other people's opinions affect you? And are you going to let that ruin the party for everything? With Jupiter and Taurus, like Jupiter's about faith, belief, optimism, growth, abundance. It's in Taurus. We're talking about value, security, stability, being grounded, physical, tangible things. Maybe you just bought a new product and someone says, that's stupid. Why did you buy that? It's a waste of money. You can't just let other people's opinions dictate everything. And I think on Wednesday, there is a looking at like, or, you know, people are going to share their opinions anyway. Are you going to really let that affect the things that you enjoy, right? Like I play Frisbee golf. I love Frisbee golf. Some people think it's super dumb, but like, I just, I don't care. And sometimes when people are like, oh, that's dumb. Like, why do you do that? I've gotten to a point where it doesn't really affect me, but it's kind of like, that's just life. But why would I let them ruin a good thing that I enjoy? Then on Wednesday, the moon will square Uranus by the late evening on Wednesday. And Uranus, instability, you know, random events, a little chaotic. The moon's in Aquarius. It's going to square it, where, again, as we're a little bit more connected to society at large, people, our communities, our tribes, it's going to square Uranus, where there is this kind of like, again, destabilizing effect, where Uranus being in Taurus is creating instability with value, creating instability with security and food. I mean, like, look at the current monetary situation. Look at the current housing situation. Look at Bitcoin. There's all these new innovations when it comes to value and money, and same thing with food. Look at food scarcity and all the food problems that we have going on. Well, it's not just food scarcity. It's the fucking chemicals that we put in the food, and we call it food. As the moon squares Uranus, there is on one end, emotional upheaval, emotional instability. On the other, and it's going to be coming from, like, again, like someone might tell you an opinion, or you hear an opinion, and then you start going, well, what do I actually value? Well, what do I actually want? And what does this actually mean? It's like, I'm really into finding, like, I'm like, I would consider myself a biohacker. I'm always looking for ways to optimize my life in a more natural and healthy way. And it's so funny. What sucks about being in this world is, like, you'll find something where, like, oh, this is cool. This is great. This will help me, you know, optimize my life in a more healthy, natural way. And then you'll read more about it and you're like, no, this has this chemical or this bad reaction, or there's this study that shows this. And then you kind of go, fuck, like, I thought I had the solution. And you end up kind of spiraling. That's kind of like the moon squaring Uranus, is like right when you might find, like, right when you think you might have found something, it's not really what it appears to be. And you just can't let that deter you from, like, still trying to find a solution. But on Wednesday, there is this level of just being, like, annoyed and frustrated and chaotic because you're not finding that solution. And there is this problem that seems unfixable. So we get into Thursday, and we get one of our highlights this week. The first highlight was, of course, the full moon in Capricorn. But on Thursday, the moon will go opposite Venus and Mars. It will then ingress into Pisces and conjoin Saturn. So quite a bit of moon action. But then we also get Mercury sextiling Uranus. And here I go again, talking about sextiles to Uranus that I don't care about all the time. But we're going to talk about them. First, the moon is going to go opposite Venus and Mars. Coming back to you. All of this Leo stuff. How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be witnessed? What is your heart telling you? What is going to be the most authentic way that you can do things? Leo and Aquarius is Leo is the performer, Aquarius is the crowd. And as the moon's in Aquarius, it's like, you know, our crowd is, you know, having weird effects. Our crowd is having, you know, weird responses to the things that we're doing. And it's, again, this is an opposition. The two parties are at odds with one another. And it's kind of like you're noticing your performance is like not being received well to the audience. And this isn't necessarily a day to like fix or change things, but this is a day to take notice of that. Because as Venus retrogrades in Leo, we're changing our relationship to, you know, literally our performance, to how we're being seen, to how we're being witnessed, to what is authentic and real to us, right? If you are catering only to the crowd, well, you're not actually being real to yourself. But if you're also just like not listening to the crowd at all and no one's laughing at your jokes, then also something needs to change, right? So I think on Thursday, there's this kind of big look at like, what am I doing? What is the reception to that? And what is going to be needing to be changed over these next few months? And again, you want to look at your birth chart of where Venus is going to be retrograding, because this is going to give you, and what axis of houses that's on, because that's going to give you a lot more insight as to what this means. Also, if you want to know what the Venus retrograde is going to be like for you and everything else, download my transit calendar app. So many people have gotten it. So many people love it. I was kind of surprised when I downloaded it how much I literally enjoy it, because there's so many little transits I forget about. And it's nice having the reminder of like, oh, this is happening today. And then I end up seeing it happen in real life. Go ahead and do it. It supports the channel, supports me. I really appreciate it. Anyway, the moon will then move into Pisces and start to conjoin Saturn on Thursday. So as the moon moves into Pisces, right, feeling a little emotionally everywhere, kind of exploring our emotions on a more spiritual level. But the moon's going to be applying to a conjunction with Saturn. It's time to get a little real about this. It's time to apply the effort and the work. Where the moon in Pisces is more so whimsical and a little all over the place, as it conjoins Saturn, it's like, I can't just be, you know, I can't just be all over the place. I need to figure out what is going to give me the most stability, strength, clarity when it comes to, you know, your emotions and your beliefs. Like Pisces is it's the more, Sagittarius is the extroverted spiritual person. Like anything is possible and, you know, adventure is out there. And Pisces is more internal. Is like, you know, everything that you want externally, you can create internally. As the moon goes into Pisces, there is this kind of reflection on the inward self of like, okay, well, who do I have to be? What do my beliefs have to be? How does my body, mind, and soul need to be connected in order to, again, get where I need to go? This is a waning moon. So we're coming down off that full moon. So this is kind of like, again, it's like after a performance or after you played a big game, like, all right, like grab your Gatorade, sit down for a second, take some breaths, like reflect. How did that game go? And this is kind of like reflecting on how the game went. And as the moon conjoins Saturn, there's this level of like, well, there's restrictions in this area, like on the internal level. You're not going to have a solution right away. But if you just connect with that, like, again, here's the fun thing about life. All of your problems are not going to have solutions available immediately to you. Sometimes a part of finding the solution is actually going through the problem. But so many of us want to ignore the problem. So many of us want to just say, oh, it's not a problem. If you can't find a solution, then it's like, all right, well, then I'm just going to deal with it. But I think as the moon conjoins Saturn, there's a level of kind of just sitting with that, of like, okay, how is that perform? Like, again, if you're after a game, a coach is going to hound you. It doesn't matter if you guys won, a coach is going to hound you. How can you do better? That's like this moon in Pisces conjoining Saturn. Like, you might have thought you did super good and it was really great. Well, just like I said with the moon in Aquarius going opposite Mars and Venus, you're seeing how the crowd is responding to your act, to your performance. Then the moon goes into Pisces and it's conjoining Saturn, where it's like, maybe you have a coach, maybe you have someone that's going to share with you like, hey, this is what you need to do better. And you can't just, you can't just be a comedian and no one laughs at your jokes and then come off stage and be like, that was great, I did amazing. It's like, no, you have to fucking have self-awareness. So I think as the moon conjoins Saturn, this is kind of being real with yourself of like, okay, not everything's optimal, not everything's ideal, not everything's just, rose-colored glasses. How can we make this better? And that takes like, a coach. Like a coach is not supposed to be your best friend. A coach is supposed to say, hey, these are your weaknesses. These are your strengths. How can we optimize your strengths? How can we, eliminate your weaknesses? Or how can we improve your weaknesses? But then also on Thursday, Mercury is going to sextile Uranus. This is one of the highlights this week. And this is not an exciting week. But this week, what I love about weeks that don't have a lot of transits to them is you just get it's kind of like if you've been having a chaotic life lately, like, your kids got problems, your, partner's doing a bunch of crazy stuff, work's really crazy. But then there's like these weird moments where you're almost bored and there's not a lot going on and you get to kind of reflect on a lot more. That's like what this week is like. As Mercury is in Cancer and sextiles Uranus, Mercury being about, again, communication, logic, rationale. It's in Cancer, the sign of our emotions, the sign of necessity. It's sextiling Uranus. Uranus is the planet of liberation, breakthroughs, instability. It's in the sign of Taurus, of value and security. There's like this level of, with a coach, a good coach is not just going to hound you on your performance and be like, you suck, do better. But a coach might be like, hey, why were you not in the game? Why were you not there? Do you have problems going on at home? Do you have relationship problems? Are you, do you have some insecurities? Like, you have to sometimes sit down and like have a real heart to heart. And I think with Mercury in Cancer and like this moon in Pisces transit, it's not about just being hard on yourself, but like really asking those emotional questions of like, where does your heart need to be? What is the problem that's stopping you? And just being like, hey, this is a safe spot. This is a safe space to communicate this stuff. But sometimes for me, I'm all fire and air in my chart. I don't have any water in my chart. And oftentimes what I love about water sign people is they have the ability to help me see the water energy in my life, where they might ask really good questions of like, well, how does that emotion, why are you feeling that emotion? Is it this? Is it that? And I say all this because as Mercury sextiles Uranus, it's like when you have that level of awareness, when you have that, that logic being applied to you, there is some sort of breakthrough to get there. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there's something about just like exploring your emotions that allows you to go, oh, I feel this way because of X, Y, and Z. Didn't even fucking realize it. It could even be something like, you don't have enough magnesium in your body or you don't have enough sleep. But Mercury sextiling Uranus is like when you're thinking with this logic, there's some sort of breakthrough for you there to understand. And so that's pretty much Mercury sextiling Uranus is like thinking about these kind of emotional things is going to allow you to see a bigger picture, kind of a little bit of a breakthrough, a little bit of a realization. So then we get into Friday, and then it's just the moon sextiling Jupiter all day. Not a big deal. It is nice though, because as the moon's separating from Saturn, it's in Pisces. So we're feeling a little bit more like, okay, we just had that kind of serious moment, but what does that mean when it comes to exploration? The moon making a sextile to Jupiter is like, again, slow and steady wins the race. Like, for example, I was just talking about this with a client. When you water your plants, like if you plant seeds, there's a difference between the plant growing out of the ground and that plant fruiting or flowering. Like the moon, just because you planted a seed doesn't mean you're going to get fruit from it immediately or flowers from it immediately. But this is kind of like seeing the plant just come up from the ground, which there's hope. The plant has to come up from the ground, then it's got to leaf out, then it's got to flower and bloom. And I think as the moon sextiles Jupiter is like, hey, the journey of life is you're not going to figure all this shit out, but you should be acknowledging yourself when you see, like if you are a plant, if your life is like a plant that you are growing, that leaves are branching out. You may not be flowering yet, and that's okay. But as the moon sextiles Jupiter, it's like the slow and steady wins the race. This is a part of the faith process. Like something to understand is Saturn is in Pisces, so it's ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter in Taurus is saying like, you have to trust the process. You have to be as stable and as grounded as possible. Like if you're watering your seeds and nothing's growing, you don't just like till them up again. You don't just move them around. You don't just start changing chemical stuff. It's like you just have to water it, give it sunlight, and be patient with it and enjoy the process of it. You know what I mean? Like don't just try to rush it. And so I think on Friday, moon sextiling Jupiter is just relishing in the patience and feeling good about that. Then on Saturday, the moon is going to be making a trine to Mercury. It will then conjoin Neptune and ingress into Aries. And again, moon in Pisces making a trine to Mercury in Cancer is like having that emotional connection, heart and mind really connecting at this moment. How we're feeling, being able to express that and communicate that in a really like not necessarily well thought out, but sometimes you may not be able to find the words to express something, but just expressing it alone will help, like that other person can receive it and know what you're talking about, right? Like a lot of language is body language, how our faces react, how we, again, I talk a lot with my hands. And so the moon making that trine to Mercury is like, it may not necessarily have to be words that are communicated, but emotions, but body language. All of that's communicated really well. There's some sort of real clarity, understanding when it comes to our emotions, maybe with other people, but mostly to ourselves. And then as the moon conjoins Neptune, this is where it's a little weird. I think the moon conjoining Neptune is like kind of overdosing on the idealism and being like, this is great. I'm seeing everything with rose-colored glasses. The other part of it is, again, Neptune, rules deception. And it's kind of like one of those things where if you're going on like a Tinder date and you see their pictures and you think, wow, they're really hot. If you are thinking they're going to look just like those pictures, you are going to get catfished. If you say, wow, they really know their angles and they know how to take a picture, let's see what they look like in person, you're going to have a much more real, like your expectations are more realistic and you're not going to get catfished. Your expectations are lower. So when you do see them, you're not as let down. And so with the moon conjoining Neptune, you have to understand where you can be deceived. But it's like also too, that doesn't mean, you see someone hot on, Tinder or whatever, you're like, oh, this person's going to be, ugly or gross. Like they could be really attractive, but they're going to look different from their pictures. Like you could still be excited about it. You could still idealize it. But if you're going just off that reference photo that is not real, then you're going to be disappointed. And so with the moon conjoining Neptune, it's a level of like being excited without letting yourself be deceived, knowing that there's a deception there. And deception doesn't always have to be malicious, right? Deception doesn't always have, like, think of movies. Movies are very deceiving, right? They're not real at all. Are they malicious or are they helping tell a story? I think that's for you to decide. But I think as the moon conjoins Neptune, there's a level of being excited about something, seeing the ideal, and seeing it with rose-colored glasses, and also knowing that it's not going to be exactly what you expect. It's not going to go according to plan. It's not exactly the way that you see it. And that as you go through your journey, as you go along for the ride, the reality of it will reveal itself to you. But then the moon will go into Aries, and pretty nice little charge up as the moon goes into Aries, which we'll talk about more on Sunday. And on Sunday, as the moon's in Aries, the moon doesn't make an aspect to Mars or Venus yet, but like the moon's in Aries, Mars and Venus are in Leo. Like there's something exciting, there's something ambitious, there's something fun and playful about this energy that happens on Sunday. And it'll more so continue into Monday of next week. But first off, another highlight that we have going on Sunday is Mercury's going to be making a trine to Neptune. And with Mercury trining Neptune, as again, we're communicating more with it. The way that we're communicating is more empathetic, more relational, more feeling, more trust-based. As it trines Neptune, if Mercury's about logic and understanding, well, it's like, think of watching a movie. Certain movies, when they have the right movie magic, make you feel something super deep. And of course, as human beings, we relate whatever image that we're seeing to our own lives. Like there's, a meme that's been going around for a long time now is like, you are the main character, or like when you watch a movie, you think of yourself as the main character. And there's certain movies where it's like, maybe it's action hero. So you feel like, the protagonist. But I think as the moon's trining Neptune, watching a character's feelings or emotions, like seeing how they react, seeing how they go through it, can help you understand your own emotions. And this is what is fun about media. Like Neptune does rule media. So I don't know, maybe you see something online, or you watch a movie or a TV show that you get a better connection and understanding of your own emotions because you saw a story being told. Like that's what's fun about the Jupiter stuff, is all stories. So as Mercury trines Neptune, being able to relate a story in media to your own life and understand your own emotions better. And then the other thing is just the moon is in Aries. It's really just going to be making a square to the sun, which isn't the worst thing ever. I only bring that up because it's like, as the sun's in Cancer and we are a little bit more focused on feelings, emotions, inner security, empathy, sympathy, as the moon's in Aries making a square to that, the moon rules Cancer and it's in Aries, right? We want to charge, we want to attack, we want to fight, but it's a waning moon. It's like, maybe we want to do something, maybe we need to go, but that moon squaring the sun is like, but I'm comfortable here. And there's times to like get out of your comfort zone and jump out and, you know, just attack things anyway. But I feel like on Sunday, there's this level of like, internally you want to, it's like, for example, like when you're with family, like for me, like I love working, like I love doing a bunch of shit all the time. But sometimes when I'm with my family, like I need to enjoy just being with my family, even though part of me wants to rather be doing stuff. And I have to kind of surrender to that. And that's how I look at the moon in Aries squaring the sun in Cancer, is like, you might want to go here. Like it's Sunday. Like maybe you want to go, like, you know, get some work done or go and do this, but maybe you're just with your family and maybe it's just like, enjoy that moment instead. But that's this week, guys. It's not the craziest week ever. Next week, though, the two big things that we have going on is Mars is going to ingress into Virgo. That's going to get tough really, really quick. And Mercury goes into Leo, which is going to be fun because we get to say shit out loud and be obnoxious about it. This week is chill. Next week, we have some changes going on. But the week after that, I'm telling you, like, look, I have it written down here. So this is July 10th through the 16th. So this is next week's horoscope. The week after that, so this is July 17th through, I think, the 24th. Mercury will square Jupiter, new moon in Cancer, north node in Aries, south node in Libra, sun trine Neptune, Mars opposite Saturn, sun opposite Pluto, Mercury square Uranus, sun enters Leo, and Venus stations retrograde. That's like 10 huge, huge transits. So each day gets more than one big thing in 2 weeks from now. So if you don't want to miss any updates about what's going on in the universe, subscribe to my channel. It helps me out. Like this video. Let me know what you're excited for this week and what this week is going to look like for you in your own life related to the astrology. And thank you guys so much for being here. I love and appreciate you guys. I'll see you next week.